The 7 stages of MMA addiction. Level 0, the non-MMA fan, aka the normie. You are not a fan of our glorious sport. In fact, the letters MMA are meaningless to you. That sport is called UFC, and you don't watch it. We refer to this unfortunate era as BC, before combat sports. Level 1, the casual. This is the first stage of MMA fandom. The stage a large percentage of the general public, especially men, are in. It is the starting point all hardcores pass through at some point. You may go to a watch party if invited, and you are open to the idea of watching MMA. But you ask casual questions like, is McGregor fighting this weekend? Why doesn't he just stand up? Is biting allowed? The only fighters you know are the big stars, the McGregors, the Rouseys, the Joneses. You likely know the sport as UFC, not MMA, and you also make that tired gay joke we've all heard 1,000 times before every time a fight hits the mat. And look, it's not your fault. You don't know how unoriginal you're being. You don't know how many times we've heard that joke because you're not one of us. You are a casual. Level 2, the pay-per-view enjoyer. So you've moved past the occasional watch party with that one coworker who's obsessed with cage fighting, and you've crossed the threshold. Your friend who once introduced you to this sport has successfully gateway drugged another victim of this addiction that we call being an MMA fan. You now actively pursue watching the sport, whether it be at your favorite sports bar or sailing the high seas of sketchy Russian links.
Buy. It's only $70.
Where Russian link?
You have a link? Like you don't have enough money to spend.
Never paid for it.
You now know a handful of main event fighters and get hyped for the big stars. Maybe you've even caught an interview here or there or have started following some of your favorite fighters on social media. But you skip fight nights and don't care about the prelims. Maybe you've heard of other promotions, but you certainly haven't watched them. And you're still fine missing events if you have something better to do on a Saturday night. Now, I know some of you watching this just recoiled at the idea of having something better to do on a Saturday night other than watch a UFC pay-per-view, and that's probably because you are Level 3, the UFC regular. Watching MMA is officially part of your weekly routine. You watch all numbered events and most fight nights without a big name needed to pull you in. You now recognize the names of the journeymen of the sport and have opinions on the matchups being made. Those occasional weeks without UFC, you notice them, but you're not deep diving into prospects yet. The regional MMA scene is still kind of a mystery to you, but MMA Twitter is starting to make sense. When a fighter gets robbed by split decision, you're checking the Weasel's YouTube for a breakdown confirming your opinion. You'll even tune in for the occasional ONE or PFL card, but only if it's headlined by a former UFC fighter, because you don't really know any other fighters. Sure, you'll watch Dirty Boxing, but that's because that Yoel Romero guy that used to fight in the UFC is headlining, right? You don't know what deep is yet, but you know one thing. You love the UFC, and you hate to love it. You started to realize how shitty this company is and how poor the product is in 2026, but you can't stop watching. Level 4, the Apex Slop Connoisseur, aka the hardcore UFC fan. You are now watching everything the UFC puts out. Apex cards, crowded fight nights, and of course the numbered events. Doesn't matter if it's a slop card, you don't skip those because you're not a casual. Congratulations. You will complain about the way fighters are booked and Dana White privilege, and you've even started dipping into the Contender series. You've got an opinion on Nina Drama, and you have certain fighters you love, and even more that you hate. You've started to hear the names of regional promotions and recognize them for more than just random assortments of letters. Sport has become background noise to your life. MMA podcasts, you play them at work. MMA YouTubers, you have a favorite. And it's likely not this channel, as I only have 2,000 subscribers, which is a great segue into saying if you're enjoying the video, smash the like button and hit that subscribe button. Come on, boys. Anyways, you don't miss the UFC. Fight nights, Apex Slop, you're watching it. You're at a wedding, +1, guess who's got the fights pulled up on their phone? And let's be real, you wouldn't have agreed to go, but you knew that weekend was an Apex card. There's no way you're missing a pay-per-view with the boys. This is stage 4, the last stage before you acquire your MMA mutation. Level 5, MMA mutation. This is the level where paths diverge in the MMA fandom, the MMA fan equivalent to a Pokemon evolution. This is the level where being an MMA fan has significantly started to impact your life, and it can impact you in both positive and negative ways. Watching the sport has long since become a part of your routine, but now you've picked up your mutation, and this can manifest in many ways. Perhaps you've picked up that new gambling habit, Or you've started training. Maybe you've gone beyond training and even taken your first amateur fight. Usually the martial art you pick up will correlate with the type of fighters that you rooted for when you were starting out as a fan. Fan of striking? Now you train Muay Thai. Scared of girls? Of course you train Jiu-Jitsu. One manifestation that's becoming increasingly common is the MMA influencer or YouTuber. And with several examples of non-fighters turning their fandom into successful businesses on the internet, the idea of making a living talking about the sport you love can be very appealing, however delusional it may be. This is also the stage where many start dabbling with watching other combat sports in their entirety. And what you may find is that you enjoy them more. You can go down and up at this point, but this is the peak of most people's MMA experience. Few people in the North American region break out of the UFC bubble. But if you do, you can ascend to level 6. The hardcore MMA fan. You have officially escaped the UFC bubble. Congratulations. You no longer care to watch everything the UFC puts out unless it is their best fighters. You have your favorite regional promotion. Maybe it's Cage Warriors, maybe it's CFFC. You follow prospect lists, you know fighters outside of the UFC by name. You can accurately debate the styles across organizations. At this point, you've come to realize the North American rule set with a cage and no knees on the ground is objectively not the best rule set. When you talk to UFC hardcores, you consider them casual because they don't know what's going on in the sport outside of the UFC. At this level, you almost certainly train at least one martial art, or at least you did until you blew out your knee doing BJJ. Level 7, the MMA addict. There is no escape. Your brain is fully cooked. There's really no going back at this stage. You have terminal MMA brain. Your life now revolves around the sport. You watch lower level regional shows, not because a friend is fighting on the card, but because, well, what else would you do with your time? You are a bona fide encyclopedia for the sport. You check fight announcements on Bloody Elbow regularly, and you've probably trained seriously in at least one martial art for several years now. Or at least own a gi and some shin guards that you never use. You argue about the obscure matchups from 2006, and you have a distinct opinion on which era of the sport was best. Getting rear naked choked is probably the closest you get to physical touch at this point, and now what few friends and family you have left are planning to stage interventions about your screen time. You have developed a physical dependency on MMA, and your emotional state is determined by fight outcomes. You are a certified MMA addict.
Yes! 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 My parents are cousins! Yes!
What level of MMA fan are you? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching, y'all. If you're new here, consider subscribing and checking out some of my other content. And until next time, peace.